Hi everybody, it's Sean and Catherine with Monorail Central here. Today, we are going to be discussing our dining experience at Triton's aboard the Disney Wonder during our 9-night Alaskan cruise.
Triton's is located on Deck 3 midship, with one of the entrances directly next to the Ariel statue in the atrium, and there is a second accessible entrance located on the port side, closer to the French Quarter Lounge.
Triton's is one of the 3 main rotational dining restaurants aboard the Disney Wonder. Of the 3 restaurants, it is really the more upscale of the 3. During both of the primary dinner seatings, it does cater more towards French cuisine. It is a little more upscale. This is where you're going to have your lobster night and your captain's dinner night. Definitely more of like the traditional cruising dining rooms, in my opinion. Triton's is also named after King Triton from Little Mermaid, which kind of carries on this Little Mermaid theme that the Disney Wonder has going on in the lobby atrium. It's almost exactly the same as Lumiere's Aboard the Magic or Royal Court or Royal Palace on the Dream and Fantasy. Menus are exactly identical, themes are pretty much almost exactly the same. It's got like a very regal atmosphere.
And if you're someone like me who really likes the different napkin folding techniques that they do, Triton's is the restaurant where they do the suit jacket napkin fold, which is probably my favorite one. It's so intricate. It's just, I have a lot of fun. I love the towel animals and the napkin folding on board of the cruise ships. So if you're like me, that's the restaurant where you're going to go and you're going to have the cute setup when you first get in.
We ate at Triton's on 3 nights of our 9-night sailing. This particular review is just going to be of the primary 2 menus that you'll get at Triton's, which is just, they call it one the Triton's menu, and then they also have the Captain's Gala dinner if you're on a longer sailing with the second dining rotation.
We're going to start things off with the Triton's menu. This is your guaranteed menu for your cruise, no matter how long your cruise is.
And I verified it this time. I wasn't wrong like I was last time.
For our first appetizer, we had the iced lobster and jumbo shrimp. This was served with green asparagus, horseradish cream, and dill dressing. This was probably my favorite appetizer from this menu. Even though it's kind of like a shrimp cocktail, they're iced shrimp and lobster. Very basic appetizer. This was one of my favorites from the traditional menu. The asparagus on this dish is nice and crisp. It wasn't overcooked like sometimes it can be. It's not mush. It had a bite to it, and I really appreciate that. I will say, however, they were really stingy on that dill sauce and horseradish. It's like a little like dollop on your plate. It's not something that you can like dip your shrimp and your lobster in. They were good without those dressings and dips, but I will say that if you want to taste those, they're not really going to be apparent on the dish.
They'll definitely give you more if you ask. My main gripe with this dish, even though it was very good, they kind of gypped you on the lobster a little bit.
Yeah.
As you can see in the picture here, it's kind of like they gave the shrimp a little lobster hat.
It's like a thin slice.
Yeah, if you're expecting lobster with this dish, prepare to be disappointed, because the first item on the menu it's listed as is iced lobster and jumbo shrimp.
I thought that it was going to be like iced lobster was the main thing, and then there was like 1 shrimp, which has been the theme with cruise line saying that there's shrimp in an appetizer. It's like 1 or 2. The lobster was good. I would have just liked more of it.
Exactly my feelings. Shrimp are good. They weren't overcooked like Disney tends to do. It had a great flavor profile. It wasn't too citrusy. It wasn't too seafoody. Lobster was good. It was really seasoned perfectly. Just a little more lobster. For my first appetizer, I had Gaston's Escargot Gratinée, which is herb marinated snails with finely chopped mushrooms topped with garlic butter. It also comes with this little teeny tiny French breadstick thing that you can use to dip in whatever's left over from your snails. This is an S-tier appetizer on Disney Cruise Line. I spend thousands of dollars of my own money just to go on cruises, just to go get escargot at the main dining restaurants. This escargot was the first escargot I ever had.
Not on this
trip. I first tried this escargot aboard the Fantasy in 2014, and it's what introduced me to escargot. I love it. It's one of my favorite appetizers. I will go out of my way to go to a restaurant that has it. When I went to France for the first time, the year after this cruise, I was prepared because I knew I liked escargot. You can't go wrong with it. And if you're ever afraid to try snails, try it on Disney Cruise Line because it's included and you don't have to feel bad about wasting it because it eventually gets turned into eco-friendly fireworks. So, fish food.
Sean is the one that introduced me to Disney Cruise Line escargot. I was very hesitant to try escargot because I know you're eating a snail. But I have to tell you, once you try it, you're going to love it. It is a texture thing for some people. If you have an aversion to certain textures, I would steer away from the escargot if you haven't tried it before.
If you cook a steak and you cook, like you render a fat cap down to where it's supposed to be, it kind of like, you can kind of like chew right through it, but it also kind of, gives back a little. And it's also exactly what it tastes like. It tastes like rendered beef fat.
Yeah, I will say it's very good, but if you have a texture aversion, I would avoid it. But otherwise, very good. And to Sean's point, it's already included. You can get as many appetizers as you want. If you maybe just get one order of escargot for the table, that is a good way to...
I order 3 just for myself.
For you, yes. But for anyone who's trying it for the first time, let's say you're with a group of people and you just order 1 starter of escargot and each take 1 escargot.
You can try it, and if you like it, you can order another serving.
Yes.
Disney Cruise Line is the best place to try it because you technically already paid for it, and if you don't like it, it just becomes fish food. My second appetizer this night was the breaded and deep-fried Brie, which is served with an orange and cranberry chutney. This is another, classic appetizer aboard Disney Cruise Line. If you love Brie, you'll love this deep-fried Brie. The cranberry chutney that comes with it is better than any, Thanksgiving cranberry sauce you will ever have. It complements the Brie very well, but similar to the lobster, they don't give you nearly enough in one serving. So you have to order 3 servings of this just to be satisfied.
It is really good. I will say the only reason that I rated that iced lobster and shrimp above it is because I'm not really a Brie person, but it was good. It was good. Now, for my second appetizer, I chose to go with the French onion soup. This is from the soups and salads part of the menu, not the starters part of the menu, but I choose to have it as a starter. This comes with a Gruyere cheese crouton, and it was served to me like someone had already put their spoon in it and started eating it.
It came out cold, too.
Like, the outside, I don't know how they do this with a soup. I understand how they do it with another, meal or something, but the outside was really hot and the center of the soup was ice cold. I have never seen the Gruyere still shredded when it's served to me, like it was just sprinkled on top and not broiled, flambéed, whatever they do to it. It was just sprinkled on top.
And floating around like a little dirty aquarium.
The crouton was nothing to write home about. It didn't taste good. It didn't taste bad.
No salt either.
Oh no. And I understand, and I've said this before, in our Tiana's video I said this, that I understand cooking for the masses, you have to be ready for a variety of tastes. But that doesn't mean you don't put salt in your food. It doesn't excuse the fact that we had to almost dump the entire salt shaker into this to even make it taste good.
That's exactly what we did too.
Like,
we looked insane. And adding salt to it didn't even really help because it was ice cold in the middle and the salt just kind of just went down to the bottom.
Yeah.
It didn't even dissolve into the soup.
So, unfortunately, can't recommend the French onion soup from Triton's.
Other than that, Triton's regular menu has some of the best appetizers aboard Disney Cruise Line. And now on to the main courses at Triton's. We tried 3 of the 5 available main courses. The first one that we tried was the Conchiglie Pasta, which came with buttered lobster tossed in a tomato, shrimp, and tarragon brandy sauce with lemon basil. And this kind of tasted like bad lobster. It wasn't good.
No, none of it was good, which was kind of sad because this was something that our server recommended to us.
If you've ever had like seafood that's been off for maybe a day or so, you know it kind of has that funky taste and it kind kind of tastes a little bit like ammonia, and that can make you sick. So I took one bite of this, and it kind of like recoiled. The lobster itself was pretty decent. Like, it's the same lobster I'm sure they were using for the shrimp appetizers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they used some sort of stock for the tarragon tomato shrimp bisque thing that just was either not stored properly or was just way too old to be served.
I'm not a big lobster person,
Mm-hmm.
so I typically, if Sean orders a lobster dish for us to try, I typically eat around it, I eat the sides, I eat a little bit of lobster, and that off taste was apparent in the pasta too.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention that this pasta was undercooked.
Oh, wildly undercooked.
Wildly undercooked. Like, it almost still had a crunch.
Mm-hmm. I'm depressed talking about this. Quite honestly, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Avoid it. I'll probably try it again when we go on the Magic next month, just to see if it's, if it was a problem with the Wonders Kitchen, but that'll be its last chance.
Yeah.
Because this dish definitely has potential. I've had similar dishes like this, I think at Flying Fish on the boardwalk, and it was really good. So it has the potential. Just stay tuned for our Lumiere's review in a couple months, and we'll see if our minds have been changed.
This next dish is a roasted rack of lamb medium, served with potatoes, Brussels sprouts, and a burgundy rosemary sauce. So I will say I'm not a big lamb person, but I was willing to try it. Again, when you're on a Disney cruise, try all the food. This just wasn't a good cut or something of lamb.
No, this was butchered.
It was fatty, and I didn't really like it. It also came cold in the middle, which, it's like they nuked the food just long enough so that the plate was hot when it came to the table, but the center of the food was cold. The potatoes were warm in this one, I will give it that, but the Brussels sprouts and the rack of lamb weren't warm. And things don't have to be served piping hot. It should be served at a good temperature where you're not like, oh my god, this is cold, I don't want to eat it, because
The Brussels sprouts were just straight up undercooked.
yeah.
Like, undercooked Brussels sprouts are very tough to chew through. I could tell that these were probably just boiled and not boiled long enough and then thrown in the microwave.
Yeah. With a little butter on top.
Yeah. This particular lack of ram, I think was too small of a portion size to be considered a main entree. The meat to fat ratio on this was like 50-50.
Yeah.
It was not a good cut. Potatoes were good. We never really had bad potatoes on this sailing.
It's really hard to mess up potatoes.
The burgundy rosemary sauce wasn't overpowering. It was okay. But this, if you're trying lamb, this wasn't a good dish to try.
The potatoes and the burgundy rosemary sauce were the standouts of this dish, but I would have liked the lamb to be the standout of this dish. Unfortunately, it just didn't hit home.
I haven't had good luck with lamb on Disney Cruise Line. The Disney Wish had lamb at Marceline Market when we tried it, and it was like biting into a hockey puck, and this was just like biting into a microwaved steak. For our final entree, we split the Chateaubriand-Roasted Filet steak, which was served with crushed new potatoes with shallots, buttered green beans, red wine jus, and a béarnaise sauce on the side.
This dish was pretty good. However, it was absolutely not a filet. It was a prime rib, which Disney Cruise Line, I've seen this a lot, where they advertise it as filet, as a ribeye, as other things, but it's all prime rib. And I understand, prime rib is pretty good, but if I'm ordering a filet, I want a filet. I don't want a prime rib. If I'm ordering a ribeye, I want a ribeye. I don't want a prime rib.
Arendelle on the Wish had the same thing, where I think they had, it was a New York strip or something, and it came out and it was 100% prime rib.
Yeah. It's not that big of a deal, as long as you're not advertising it as a different cut of steak.
Mm-hmm.
I'll still eat a prime rib. I don't care. But if I'm expecting one thing, and I get something completely different, I'm not going to be happy.
It definitely wasn't like the fatty cut of a prime rib. You can tell, like, they did their best to make it look like a filet.
Yes.
It was not a filet. It was not tender like a filet. It had the same consistency as prime rib, which I have no problem with. But I also don't like being lied to on my $10,000 cruise.
It was good. I enjoyed it. Just don't go into this thinking you're getting a filet.
I remember this being a filet before on other ships. I can't remember. I think the last time I had it was on the Dream in 2020. It was definitely a filet on that cruise. Potatoes, good.
Good. I think this was my favorite potato of the night. And the green beans were okay. They were cooked fine. They weren't like too mushy. They still had like a snap to them.
They were microwave, steam in the bag.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Not bad. They just needed salt.
Also, we never got our béarnaise sauce on the side. It didn't come out like either side on the plate, or it didn't come out in a little container that you could pour on top, like you normally would find at like a steakhouse or something. So I unfortunately can't review that for you today. Sorry.
Overall, good dish. Solid choice.
The best of the three we had.
The best, absolutely. The best of the three that we had, absolutely can recommend this. Just want to make sure people are going into it knowing that they're not getting a filet.
Triton's is suffering from the great appetizers and mid entrees syndrome that we've come to find recently a lot with Disney in general.
Now, starting with the desserts, we had the Tahitian vanilla creme brulee. This is served with an almond biscotti, and it can also be served gluten-free if you don't get the biscotti. This was pretty good. I really liked it.
I did too.
It was a good creme brulee, nice and crispy on top, nice and smooth underneath. The biscotti didn't add much flavor to it. It was just okay. I did like the raspberry though. The raspberry, it wasn't mushy.
It was fresh.
It was fresh. But overall, really liked it. Nice flavors.
My dessert was the apple tart Tatin, which was a caramelized baked apple served with vanilla ice cream. Not listed on the menu is that it was served on top of a puff pastry like disc. I should have expected it because I did order an apple tart. When it came out though, it was a whole freaking apple, dude.
Like it was literally put into one of those apple cores that spirals the apple, and you got the whole apple. I will say they didn't skimp on that. Sometimes they skimp on their desserts, and you have more puff pastry.
It wasn't bad. If you like apples, you'll like this dish. I mean, it came with a caramel sauce. It came with vanilla ice cream. Vanilla ice cream was just It was definitely a mass-produced. It kind of tasted chemically like some mass-produced vanilla ice creams can taste. That kind of detracted from the dish a little bit. Overall, it's a solid option if you like apples.
For our final dessert, we had the signature dessert, which was the classic opera Gâteau. This had layers of Joconde sponge soaked in coffee syrup, chocolate ganache, and rich buttercream. And this reminded me of a French tiramisu.
That's basically what it was.
Yeah. It was good. I liked it a lot.
I did too. Should it be Triton's signature dessert?
No.
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 Definitely for this style of restaurant in Disney Cruise Line's rotational dining, I think the signature dessert would really be the Grand Marnier souffle. Because that's like the dessert that everybody gets.
It was really good. I liked the little gold flakes on it. I think that's why they called it the signature dessert.
Probably.
They put 2 gold flakes on top.
I like the little chocolate square that says opera on it.
Yes.
So, overall, Triton's guaranteed menu. The Triton's menu.
I wouldn't say eat elsewhere.
I would.
You would.
I would. Quite honestly, if you were going to pick a night to do Apollo dinner and you don't have a pirate night on your cruise like this sailing, I would have skipped this night and just ordered the appetizers from this menu at another restaurant. Because they'll do that if they're serving that menu that night. Like if you were at Tiana's or Animator's Palette, you can ask for menu items from the other restaurants. They all share a common galley on deck 3.
I will say, sometimes they tell you they can't accommodate it unless you request it the night before.
Especially on our cruise, because we were a full sailing at capacity. My recommendation for Tritons is go to Apollo dinner that night or eat on the pool deck that night, and then just order the appetizers. And honestly, you can order the appetizers, I think, to your stateroom if you ask nicely, or you can ask for them to be ordered at another main dining room restaurant.
I would choose to go to Trainz. I would choose to go there. There are some solid options on the menu. There are things that you can't go wrong with, and there are things that Trainz and Disney needs to improve on.
So that was our review of the primary Triton's menu aboard the Disney Wonder. This particular menu was high appetizer, mid entree, and high dessert.
There are some good options. There are some not so good options. There are things that you can't go wrong with at Triton's. So I would definitely try it.
This restaurant has some of the best appetizers aboard the Disney Cruise Line, in my opinion. But it has some of the most kind of blandish entrees.
If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like this in the future, please be sure to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to Monorail Central for more Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney World, Disney Vacation Club, and Walt Disney World Monorail project content.
Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all real soon.